Okay. Uh, Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, depending on which time zone you are in. My name is Alexey Laureshin. I will be the moderator of today's session, today's webinar. I work for Lund University in Sweden. I do research and teaching related to traffic safety. But today I have a different hat. I also represent the Traffic Safety Research Journal. And our journal started a series of webinars on how to conduct and publish excellent research on traffic safety. And I hope you see value in these type of activity. For us as a journal, we would be very happy to get better paper, more excellent papers, and I hope you as researchers also will be able to learn something new and useful. So the idea of these webinars is that we invite very senior, very experienced researchers in traffic safety and basically ask them to share the wisdom. And today's speaker is Henk Stipdonk from the Netherlands. He spent quite many years at the SWOF Institute for Road Safety Research. He's been a research leader there for quite a while. And the last 5 years he spent being the director of, what was the correct name? Transport Policy, KIM, yes, Institute for Transport Policy Research. Henk has retired very recently, but he announced that he is retired but not tired. So he is still active in our domain. He is still involved in initiatives such as Delft Road Safety Courses and CARSIP, another initiative related to building knowledge capacity in low and middle income countries. So he is still very sharp, very much alert, and has many lessons for us to learn. So to keep story short, I will give the floor to Henk now. Just a little bit about the procedure. So if you have questions during or after the talk, please just write your name in the chat. You don't need to write the entire question. Write your name, and as you see, we are in one big Zoom meeting, so basically anyone can talk at any time, but I will try to moderate the process and I will call you out in the order that shows in the chat. Yeah, please keep your microphones off during the speech. There would be an opportunity for discussion at the end of the webinar. So, Henk, you are most welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alexei, and welcome everybody. It's an honor for me to take part in this series of presentations. I hope I will meet the expectations that Alexei just sketched out for you. But it's true that the insight that I'm going to share with you in the coming 3/4 of an hour has come from many years. Well, it was not so long ago, say 5 or 6 years, that I wouldn't have been able to give the presentation I'm giving today because I hadn't learned yet what I am going to share with you today. This is what I'm going to tell you about. I'm focusing on how to choose excellent scientific traffic safety research. And the focus is to be both scientifically relevant and societally relevant. The main question is how to match science and society. We want to do excellent scientific research, but it is about road safety, and the ultimate goal always of our research is to help policymakers make the right decisions. And I would like to share with you some good examples and some poor examples. and I'll summarize the key lessons. So that's what you can expect now. So first, how to match science and society. So one of the questions is, should you do research and then try to convince policymakers that your research is useful for them and that they should read their paper and read the report? Or should it be the other way around? And the question also is research always ahead of policymaking? Does it help policymakers to know what they need to know? So all these questions are relevant, and of course it depends on where your research is heading and whom you're talking to. It is in the last institute where I've worked, so the Institute for Research for Policymaking on Traffic and Transport at the Ministry, that I learned this actually. So 5 years before, when I was at SWOF, I wasn't aware of the importance of zipping, what I call it zipping research to policymaking. What is it about? Well, it always starts, in my view, with the policy question. What does the policymaker need to know? What does he know? What does he need to do? What are his options? And that, of course, depends on what he wants to change. If he wants to change the safety of pedestrians, he should do something different from if he wants to change the safety of car drivers. So there are many options there. But whatever his options are and whatever his policy questions are, that could lead to a research question. What do we need to know what we need to do? It's a funny sentence. I especially put it this way because it makes it easier to remember. What do you need to know what you need to do? And these two, the research question and the policy question, of course, are intertwined. They are linked. And in my view, they are linked with a zipper. You have to zip them. And the zipper is a symbol that I like very much because in the first place, when you have a sweater or something with a zipper in it, both halves are equal. They are of equal importance. They are not the same. One is left and the other is right, but they are of equal importance. And zipping means here that you do not just try to connect them when the research is done, or also not just when you're starting the research, but you have to be in contact. Researchers have to be in contact with policymakers before and during and after the research. That is the idea of the zipper. I hope to be able to show you why this is important. And first a few slides to show you where this zipper comes from actually. So in my view, it is the policymaker that needs to ask the researcher, can you help me solve my problem? I need to do something and I don't know everything I need to know what to do. And then it's the researcher that tries to help because what the policymaker doesn't know is they don't know what the researchers know because they are policymakers. And they are not, well, I assume that most or even many decades, most policymakers are not. Policymakers usually are in the field for a short time and then they switch to another policy issue or whatever. So they do not know what we know. They think they need to know. They think they want new research, and often that is not even true. So they don't know what researchers know. They don't know what to ask to researchers. More often than not, there are exceptions, of course, but more often than not, they do not know what to ask. And they do not know how research is working, what the process is, what can be researched and what can't be researched. Researchers have to help there. So help is the other way around. Talk to the policymaker and help him explain what can and can't be done. And because this is not a one-time issue, but a many moments issue, you will have to continue talking. Here I put what the researchers don't know. Researchers and policymakers are different people living on almost different planets. At least that is my experience. Perhaps in your country or in your situation it's different, but in my view, they live on different planets. Researchers do not know what policymakers need. I don't know that policymakers are not going to read your paper. or your report because they don't have time for it, and because it's too difficult, and because it's usually written for other researchers and not for policymakers. So talking is really important, not just sending the email with the report and good luck with it. And this has to be a two-way bidirectional communication that is not just once and once in return, but it is something that has to be continued for a long time, forever maybe. And that's where the zipper comes from. You can see the zipper there in red. I put on this slide the question, who should have priority? My view is, and you may disagree with it, my view is that the researcher has the priority when it comes to starting the discussion, starting the conversation. He should look for policymakers that are interested in research that can be helpful in this making the right decisions. Because the researchers are the people with the knowledge, and they should be helpful and respectful to the policymaker and start the discussion. And so for the discussion, it's the researcher that should make the start. When it comes to what to research, it's to a large part the policymaker that should show the way with his or her questions and his or her problems. He or she should lead towards which research is most useful. That is, at least that is my view. That is what I've learned in the last 6 years. Yes, and then there's this question, research or no research. Policy questions regard what to do. And the research goes about what we need to know what we need to do. Effective research is about need to know, not about nice to know. Not about interesting. It's about what you need to know what to do. And it's more about today's needs than about future needs. I heard at SWOV and other research institutes very often that the research of today should answer the questions of tomorrow, which is in a way true, of course. But I have a slightly different position. If it is possible to do research for the policy question of the future, it's fine to do this, but not if there are today's needs that are not fulfilled. So if the policymaker today says, I don't know what to do, and you tell him you don't have time for him because you're busy with the future questions of policymakers, because that is more interesting, I think you miss the point. You can do both, perhaps. Answer the questions of today, and if there's time left, you can think about what will be the research problems or the policy problems for tomorrow, and put part of your research effort into the future needs of the policymaker. But very often, for the today's needs, you don't need to do research, because very often policymakers need to know things that are actually already known by researchers. And what you need to do then is what we call knowledge at the table. At my institute, in the last 5 years, the KIM, we called it knowledge at the table. And in Dutch, it's the same abbreviation. So that's why CAT. It means you sit on the lap of the policy colleagues and help them understand their problem and see what you can do for them with the knowledge that is already there in the millions of papers that we have already produced together. And then you can spare some time by doing to do research that is about the future policy needs. As long as you fill the today's needs of the policymaker with your help, or perhaps with some research. So that is really my position. If you want to make a difference, if you want to make your knowledge and your research helpful to change road safety in your country or in your city, you should look at the needs of the policymaker of today and help the policymaker with his or her needs, with research or with knowledge at the table. Now, what does it look like? I don't know why, but there it is. So this zipping starts at the beginning. You ask policymakers what they're up to, what their options are, what they need to know what to do. And these questions may lead to research or to knowledge at the table, or you can have another discussion, depending on how it goes. And a thing that you should ask, often have to ask, I did that really many times, literally. I ask policymakers if they require some specific research. Okay, when I have done this research and the result is at the table, what are you going to do with this? And then when the policymaker says, well, I don't know yet, just do this research because I'm interested in the outcome. And if you're done, we'll discuss further what we can do or what we can't do. In that case, I would say, well, then I'm not going to do the research because you don't know where you stand. You don't know what you need to know what to do. And this often, if you are friendly and patient, that can help you find out what the policymaker really needs to know what to do. That's really another very important question in my view. And this is not, I cannot give a recipe for this process. The recipe contains ingredients like patience and being emphatic and try to be imaginatory about the problems of the policymaker. But pushing your research or blindly carrying out research that is required are both not a good thing to do. And you always have to remember when you start doing research because you have come to an agreement with the policymaker and he says, well, I would be really very interested in this research and you are happy because this research is really interesting and you're, well, really wanting to get this work. You still have to remain in contact on a regular basis, say every month or so, I don't know, because policy situations can change and also research, intermediate research outcomes may be informal for the policymaker. So in my world, this constant dialogue is really helpful and really interesting. Now, this is about how I think you could best find ways to decide what to do in research, in research that makes a change on road safety. I also like to give a few examples about poor research. There are many examples of poor research in the sense that they are not helpful in making a difference in improving road safety. And of course, I can find many examples around me, but I decided to start very close by, at home, so to say, namely my own PhD. My own PhD research, which, by the way, I carried out in my leisure time. It took me 8 years. I wasn't paid for it. I did it at home. So no money spilled. I'm very proud of my research, but it was of no value for policymakers, not at all, or hardly at least. I'm going to explain to you why. My research questions were, how can we understand and model the time series of the number of road deaths, for example, in the Netherlands? Well, in many countries, it went like in the Netherlands. So the number of road deaths went up until the 70s and then down again after the 70s. And yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting to know what happened and what made these time series go up first and then go down just as fast. Why does this happen? Marc Gaudry, perhaps some of you still know him. Marc Gaudry was from Canada, and he once put up the question. It was in Bad Honnef in Germany 20 years ago. He put up the question in a modeling session of modeling road safety specialists, and we were all together there loving modeling. And he said, yes, this modeling of you and of me, because he was a modeler himself, you are all trying to do the same thing, trying to explain why the number of road deaths goes up and then goes down again, and how road safety measures were effective or not. But as long as we cannot explain with any model why the number of road deaths went up for 20 years until the 70s and then went down again just as fast for another 30 or 40 years in many, many high-income countries. He mentioned 17 countries where that happened. As long as we cannot explain that, why should we try to do any modeling? So that challenged me very much. So I started to do research in the evenings, and I think I found the answer. And the answer is of no value for road safety policymakers, unfortunately. It is of interest, but it's of interest. It is not really helpful. And why is it interesting? Well, it is interesting because we are scientists and we think many things interesting. But for policy, it's not relevant. Because knowing where it came from doesn't help you decide which measure to take today. But what I found is interesting for us, at least. One thing I found is that it is actually not sensible to try to make models like these. Because for many reasons. Because the total number of road deaths is a sum of many different series. And all these, if you look into each subgroup of, for example, pedestrians crossing a street in rural areas or in urban areas, these are always small subgroups. So looking at one simple subgroup would mean having very low statistically very low numbers. So trying to explain why numbers there increase or decrease is senseless. And there's a gross lack of relevant travel data or other data. And the important factors are sometimes very difficult to observe. And data quality in general is poor. So that were my findings. And it brought me to decide that I should discourage anyone who wants to try to model road safety, road death data. I think it's not a good idea. Not only because it is not useful for policymakers, but in another sense as well. And I don't know if I have to elaborate on that, but perhaps now we are there, I could show you a couple of slides about this subject. So these are the number of road deaths in the Netherlands since 1950. The numbers go up and then go down again. You see black dots based on police reports and white dots based on Statistics Netherlands data, which are more accurate. There's another 10 or 20% extra in the period. My further motive to do this research was that people often said that when it comes to other countries, for example, low and middle income countries, somewhere else in the world, these countries would be somewhere in this region of their road safety development. And if we know what to do, they perhaps could shortcut this high peak and go over there directly. So understanding this, that was my reason to do this. Well, the results were not, I was not happy with the results, but anyway. When you look at the total number of road deaths in the world, this is this blue line. You cannot find the data online anywhere. They are not available. For the last 20 years, these data are estimated by the World Health Organization, but for other years here, this period, these data are not there. I used ChatGPT to generate some very gross ideas, so don't believe those data. But they are approximately close to truth. And this line at the bottom is the sum of 32 countries, almost high-income countries, most from Europe. Australia, Canada, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, USA, and Israel are the only non-European countries. All high-income countries, or almost all. If you add all the road deaths there, you get this line. And the orange is the blue one, and the green one subtracted. And you can see that the trends are completely different. you could wonder if these countries are still on the left side of our steep increase graph that I showed you before, this one. If they're still on this side or if they're already at the top, no one knows, of course. And another motive to look into these data, and that is that high-income countries don't always set the example. Here we have the American road deaths since 1900, and here we have the United Kingdom road deaths. The United Kingdom data are on the right axis and the US data on the left axis. There's a factor of 5 difference, more or less. And you can see that the USA is clearly not decreasing as fast as in England. Looking at mortality, it's even more clear. Here we have the same scale, mortality in England, mortality in America. You can see that mortality in England has decreased very fast. They're, well, close to zero, whereas in the US, almost, well, something happened in these last 40 years, but not much. And when you divide the two, you can see that the mortality ratio between America and England is a factor of 5, indicating that in America, the probability to die in traffic per inhabitant is 5 times as high as in the UK. And it also shows that it makes a difference if you really take an effort in trying to make it more safe. In England, they did. In America, they didn't. There still was a decrease, but perhaps not because there were much safety improvements, whereas in England, they did a lot. So all this, I think, was very interesting. All this still not relevant for policymaking. But now that we're discussing it, I hope you find it interesting. Now that we're discussing it, I would like to give you a minute to think. Why would this peak be there in so many countries? Why? What are your ideas? What would be your research hypothesis if you would have to research it? What do you know? And I don't know, we can discuss it now. I can just continue. You can share in the chat. I don't believe I see any chats. What is your suggestion, Alexei? Shall I just continue?
Yeah, go on.
It's all about a bad example, isn't it? So I have 4 options for you. One option is that government started with effective interventions in the 70s. So nothing was done about road safety here. And after the 70s, we decided to make a start. Or it had to do with motorized traffic growth. Or people became more and more skilled. Or there was a rise and decline of power two-wheelers. Many power two-wheelers here and not so many here. Well, before I give you the answer, I repeat, the total number of road deaths is a sum of many different time series. These subgroups have statistically small numbers. There's a gross lack of relevant data. There are important factors that are very difficult to observe, and data quality is poor. These are in the Netherlands 8 groups of different victims, road deaths. These are the pedestrians. These are the cyclists. We have the mopedists. We have car drivers, car passengers, freight and van drivers, motorcyclists, and other. There are some similarities, but there are also very clear differences. For example, these motorcyclists show these 3 bumps, and freight drivers, well, are more or less constant. Mopedists had a very sharp increase and then a very sharp decrease. So the factors that matter here, when you want to make a model that is explaining how these numbers go up and down, if you want to make a true model that can be used to understand effects of road safety measures from the total number of road deaths, you must bear in mind that you have to know distance traveled of everyone. If you want to understand pedestrian road deaths, you need to know distance traveled of pedestrians. And if you want to understand the number of road deaths of pedestrians crossing rural roads, you need to know how many pedestrians cross rural roads, because if the number is increasing, the number of road deaths will increase. And there you are. So we know that the risk to die in traffic is different for motorcyclists as compared to car occupants. Doing a modeling like this would mean that you need to know the distance traveled for every travel mode, for the travel mode of the other party in any crash type, for the age of the drivers, because young drivers are much more dangerous than older drivers or riders, for the road type, and you need to know about the experience of the road driver, because if road users are more experienced, they make less errors. So you need to know the distance traveled stratified by all these factors, and that is simply absolutely impossible. And the explanation of this peak in these many countries would be, no, governments didn't start with effective interventions in the 70s. They started doing interventions way before the 50s even. There were many measures taken way before the 70s. So that's not it. There is some truth in the development of car use, because this car use increased enormously until the 70s. This is an exponential increase with an increase of 15% annually, and after that there's only a slow increase. So this is one of the main explanations. But also, people became more and more skilled and careful, because when in a period that the car use increased by 15% annually, every year 15% of the car drivers was inexperienced. Every year. The next year, these people were more experienced than the year before, but there were another new 15% higher than the year before that are new and inexperienced. And the year after, the same thing. So we had a very inexperienced population of car users. And after the 70s, this changed dramatically. Instead of a 15% increase, we only had a 3 or 4% increase of car traffic. So everyone became gradually more and more experienced. There were hardly any new ones. And the people who learned to drive earlier became more and more experienced. So this experience factor is very high. And I believe personally that the increase in road safety, the improvement in road safety in America after the 70s was to a large extent thanks to the improved experience of car drivers. They didn't have to do anything because people became more experienced, and that led to a 5% decrease of the number of road deaths. Now, this is why do I tell you all this? Because it is tremendously interesting on a scientific point of view. I wrote many papers about it, and it is for policymaking, it is hardly relevant. I have the rise and decline of power two-wheelers as well, but I'll skip that. It is hardly relevant. And still there's one thing that we have learned from it, and that is one thing. We cannot shortcut the peak we had in the number of road deaths in the Netherlands and other high-income countries when it comes to improving road safety in low and middle-income countries. If they suffer from an increase in motorized traffic, we will have to accept that with this increase, there will be a tremendous increase in the number of road deaths until all these people have become more and more experienced. But there is something you can do, and that is apply the safe system approach. Anything that has to do with application of the safe system approach is, in my view, something that is very sensible. And if research has to be done, it is very sensible to do research in that direction, in the direction of the question, how should I apply the safe system approach in this specific situation? And that brings me to the third chapter. What are good research examples? First, I will give you an example that has nothing to do with road safety, but that nicely illustrates the dialogue that you need to carry out between researchers and policymakers. It is an example about this question, a question that arose in the Netherlands 3 or 4 years ago. Why don't people buy second-hand electric vehicles? It seems that there is hardly any change of possession of second-hand electric vehicles. New ones, okay, but there are hardly any second ones sold. What is the cause? And can you research that? Are they too expensive? Do people fear the deteriorated battery? And can you ask your panel of people that you do research with and ask them what is happening? And then we can develop a policy to change their behavior. This is actually happening in the Netherlands a couple of years ago. And what we didn't start to do the research. We wanted to know what the real problem was first. Well, I have a question to you. You may think about it for 10 seconds and then I'll give you the answer. 10 seconds, well, 5 will do. The answer was, we didn't do this research because people they weren't afraid to buy a second-hand electric vehicle in the Netherlands at all. They did. Second-hand electric vehicles were sold more often, they went excellent. People bought them as soon as they became available. Only there weren't any, because electric vehicles show a growth curve, of course. So the number of electric vehicles, second-hand electric vehicles, is much lower than the number of new electric vehicles. At least it was true in 2022. So we did a completely different research, and we really had to stick to this, because it was the state secretary who wanted this and the parliament who wanted this done. So we really had to keep our chin up there. I will give you a list of what I think is relevant road safety research in general. That would be, in my view, research offering options for direct policy actions. And examples could be research revealing the expected effect of interventions on safety. So when you do this, the number of road deaths will go down by 2% or 5% or 3% or whatever in the next 2 or 3 or 5 years, or injuries or crashes. Also interesting would be research showing how people respond to a measure, to an intervention. Will they accept the intervention? Will they try to avoid meeting the requirements and change? For example, they change from a motorcycle to an electric bike. Well, because they don't want to wear a motorcycle helmet, and then they choose for an electric bike, and then they don't have to wear a motorcycle. These things happen in the Netherlands, and you can see them coming if you research them. You can research showing the level of safety, so how to improve report rates of the police. Or you can do research on relevant key performance indicators, just measuring how people adapt to some new requirement, for example, wearing a helmet or using their seat belts when there's a campaign. And of course, cost-benefit research is always relevant because policymakers may make a better choice if they know what the most effective measure would be, if they have a choice. And of course, there's some difficulties are, how do you value a life, or how do you value an injury? And you need to know the ex ante actual effect. And it's not always true that you can use literature values there. When you're in a country with different circumstances, then you might need to do your own research, looking at trying to find out the effects of the measure in your country. But these would be research examples that would be relevant for policymakers. And another example, of course, is the example of the safe system approach. I assume that you're all aware of what the safe system is, but in case you are not, it means safety by design. And I always like to show this graph of this picture of a paper cutter. You can use it to cut a stack of paper. Say you have 500 pages and you need to slice off 1 centimeter on one side. You can put the stack in this machine and push it forward. And then when you push the button, a knife comes down and cuts the entire stack of paper. And of course, that doesn't always go as it should. Sometimes fingers and hands are chopped off. And then you can do one thing. You can put a note there, or you can write explicitly in the manual, do not put your hand under the knife. But people who make these machines have decided to do it the other way. They put 2 buttons there, so that it is not possible to use one hand to push the button and the other to push the stack under the knife. And this just saves hands. The general idea of the safe system is apply methods to allow for human error, because human error is inevitable. Make sure that by designing the system in such a way that human error is not fatal, or perhaps even not leads to injuries. That is the idea. And we know this from safety assurance systems from aviation or navigation or railroad management. There, the system is designed to minimize the possibility of human error. But there, we all are professional. All the people working there are professionals, of course. They are the citizens are only passengers. And in road safety, that's more difficult, because in road traffic, every citizen is also an active person. But the safe system approach, the idea of that is that you focus on the professionals in the system. We all know the road safety pillars, I think: road safety management, roads, vehicles, behavior, speeds. The safe system approach knows key components, 5 key components: establish institutional governance, share responsibilities, strengthen all pillars, prevent exposure to large forces, support safe road user behavior. And what we did at ITF is cross those 2. So what we did is say, okay, we have 6 pillars and we have 5 key components. You can combine them. This is what was the result of it. It's a matrix with, on one hand, the key components, and on the other, here are the pillars. Here are the key components. And for every cell in this table, we decided to describe how a safe system on the road looks like when it's in an emerging situation, or in an advanced stage, or in a mature stage. You can just start with your safe system, or you can be working on it for 30 or 40 years. The road traffic system looks a specific way for each of those cells, here or there or there. And we described how a country or a city looks when this cell is in an emerging stage. We all described this. And we then at ITF designed a tool to help you go through these options. I believe that this matrix, that was, by the way, calibrated based on 15 case studies. And when we were done, we tested the result on another 15 pilot projects and countries. So we believe we did a good job. There were, I don't know, there were about 100 people from all over the world involved in designing this framework. So we believe that with all this cooperation, we did a good job and made something. You can find it on the ITF website, by the way. Look for a safe system at the ITF website, and you will find it. And you will find a tool that shows you how to navigate in between the results. I frequently get asked these questions. The first is, okay, thank you very much for this matrix with these pillars and key components. Can you please tell me where to start? Which is the most important cell in your table? And my answer would be that depends on your options for action. So you should actually ask the policymaker, what are your options to do? Where do you stand? Do you have any influence on car safety? Do you have influence on how roads are designed? Do you have influence on what the police can do to enforce? What you can do depends on what the policymaker has as options. So there is no recipe for what to do. And that's where the researcher and the dialogue between researcher and policymaker comes in. Another question that I often get is, can scientific knowledge from high-income countries be applied in low and middle-income countries? Well, I think the answer is yes, but not in a simple way. So you can only do that when you match what is known in theory to what is needed and possible in practice. So you always have to make a tailor-made match between what we know and how you can apply what is known in practice. And it is never a straightforward thing. And why is it not straightforward? Why is it so difficult to improve road safety in many low-income countries? Well, there are many answers, but my answers are the massive use of power two-wheelers. Power two-wheelers are 20 times more dangerous than cars. We have fatalism, so people believe that it doesn't make any difference what you do because God decides, or there's just chance and nothing can be done. There are honesty issues in many countries with police officers, for example. And of course, there are economic challenges. People think that building up a powerful economy is more important than caring about lives. And another difficulty is if you're in a country where there is nothing, really nothing, no interest, nothing, where to start. Well, we did invent some ideas to challenge this, but it is still difficult. My suggestion is, when it comes to low and middle income countries, look for small local improvements that cannot be done and work from there. Make small steps. There are always possibilities. My last slide. My key lessons when it comes to how to choose good research that helps improve road safety. Start talking physically, that is, to policymakers before carrying out research. And continue the dialogue on a regular basis. Ask policymakers what they need to know what they need to do. Don't accept assignments to research, but design your own research, but listen to the policymaker and make sure that she or he will be helped in the end with your research. And ask yourself and ask the policymaker, what are you going to do with the result when it's available? And that the answer of the policymaker should show it was on a need-to-know basis, not just nice to know. And it's important to be helpful. In 50% of the time, no new research is needed to help the policymaker. You could just explain what is already known. I think this was the last slide. Yeah. Alexei.
Yes. Great. Thank you. And I see already questions are popping in. I will start with one and then I'll let other people.
Shall I stop sharing?
Yeah, you can do that. My question is related to publications. I'm totally with you when it comes to that in 50% of cases, the knowledge is available. But it doesn't help very much the academic career because we do need published to get our points and to get our promotions. So what is your philosophy related to that? Would you recommend writing, I don't know, literature reviews, knowledge summaries? Because like to publish knowledge at the table, that's not something most of the journal would willingly accept.
No, that is true. Knowledge at the table is not going to help you with your scientific career. But the other 50% of the time, you can still do research. And it would be lovely to do this aiming for road safety improvements in your country or city, and perhaps doing this together with the policymaker, perhaps not just about what you did and what you researched, but also about how it improved road safety. We're in desperate need of proof of policy interventions that work, and especially in low and middle income countries. So my experience with ITF was that it is very, very difficult to find good examples of safe system implementation in low and middle income countries, because often it's well, perhaps only a suspicion of un soupçon, they say in France, un soupçon of improvement. So it is a very small step and much wishful thinking, and we really need. There's really much room for improvement. So of proof of concept of policies that work. So cooperating between policymakers and researchers, I would welcome that very much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I see Attila has a comment. Attila?
Yes. Hi. Let me just switch on my camera. Okay. Hi, Henk. Thanks a lot for the presentation. I totally agree with you that the peak in the mortality rate cannot be avoided. But I think that the height of the peak, or even the period, the turning period, can be shortened. And one specific example came to my mind. Turbo roundabouts, for instance. It was invented by the Dutch, and now it is widely used in many European countries. So there is a knowledge transfer, which can shorten this kind of learning period. So I think that your research on road safety trends, and I hope to believe that that it's the case, it makes sense, and it's valuable. Probably not directly to policymakers, but indirectly to road safety professionals. So that's just a comment. Thank you for the presentation again.
Yes, you're welcome. Just a remark. You're right. You can do things, but this inexperience boost that will come when you start motorization, you cannot avoid that. But if you start building a city and you start building roundabouts everywhere, that would help, of course. But what I see is that in many, well, I've been in Phnom Penh, or I've been in Nairobi, and I've been in Accra. There are no roundabouts there. Well, if there are, there is just one or two. But usually the countries that are developing first build roads for traffic, not for safety. So yeah, if we could convince every country to build roundabouts instead of rectangular intersections, that would be helpful. Yeah. So yeah. But there's also the issue that the economic growth is felt as being more important than saving lives. I wrote a paper with Wim Wijnen, which is my best cited paper ever, about the difference in the value of a statistical life in low and middle and high income countries. It is stunning, but there's a big difference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas, Zambia.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexei. Thank you, Henk, for that lovely presentation. Sorry, I can't turn on my mic because of the location where I am. Yeah, I just want to ask a question, and also there's a research that I was trying to develop, and I submitted to one of the journals. Of course, I didn't receive and a response that I expected, but perhaps to improve it, I may consider even some of the things that you were talking about in terms of making it more meaningful for the policymakers. So the research that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at in terms of 2030. When you look at the decade of action for 2021 and 2030, and also in terms of Zambia, we have what we call Vision 2030. when we look at road safety and the targets that we've set, I'm trying to make a predictive model, like to show, to say, okay, by 2030, this is how the picture will look. And as much as, yes, we are trying to say we want to halve the number of deaths and serious injuries, but as it is, if certain things are not done, the picture will look like this. And I tried to show those graphs which show how the road traffic accidents and the deaths and also serious injuries might look like by 2030. But perhaps what I want to find out is, in terms of engaging the policymakers, looking at, I'd already started writing the research. At this point, do I just share with them the research? How meaningful, effective will it be to engage the policymakers at this stage? Thank you.
Well, Thomas, interesting question. Thanks for the question. Yeah, it would all depend on what the policymakers would be willing to do with your research. So I take it that you decided to do this research on your own accord. You thought it would be helpful and useful for policymakers. But suppose that you would first have asked these policymakers personally, would it be helpful for you to know how many road deaths you would have in Zambia if you would not do anything about it? Would that be helpful for you? Would it help you find funds or convince political parties or the electorate perhaps to invest in road safety or not? If the answer would have been yes, we would very much like to know how many people we will be dying in our country when we are not going to do anything, because now no one is interested in building roundabouts because it's too costly. But perhaps if we know that the number of road deaths will go up with another 1,000, then we could find these funds. If that would be the answer, that would justify your research. Suppose that you start talking to the policymaker about this, and he says, well, no, it wouldn't make any difference at all. Because if I know that there will be 1,000 more, I still don't know what to do. Then you might decide to postpone this research a little and ask first, okay, what are your options to do? And then find what would be the research that has to be done to help the policymaker know what he needs to know what to do. So it's always about what is the policymaker thinking and what does he want, what are his or her needs to make the right decision. And with this research, I've done this research as well, so it's lovely. But it's not about the question what policymakers need to know. I hope that is helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Henk.
Yeah. And if I may comment on that, the way I know, Thomas, we are cooperating now on a project running in Zambia and Tanzania and Ghana. And we had a series of workshops where researchers and practitioners met, and we've been trying to ask them questions about other issues. But what shocked me most, I asked, so guys, when did you meet like that last time? And the answer was never. So it's two totally separated boxes, two worlds that never talk to each other. And that's definitely something that needs to be changed. I mean, you do need to meet with them, to mingle with them, I don't know, to drink beer together sometimes. But I mean,
yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely drink beer together. And you need to know each other.
Yeah.
And why is it that people do not meet? Because it's our different worlds. Researchers have a different mindset and different interests as policymakers have. That, at least that is my experience in more than just my own country. Different people, policymakers and politicians want to grow. They want a growing electorate. They want growing success. They are ambitious. Researchers are also ambitious, but they want to understand. They want to find out how it works. And you need to stick together to improve road safety in a sensible way. You need a researcher to know what to do, to know what needs to be known, and you need a policymaker to do something. the researcher can't do something, and if he has written reports, it's really ignorant to think that your report will change the mind of the policymaker, because he's not going to read it. I really had big arguments with policymakers 10 years ago, 15 years ago, with people becoming angry about the reports that I wrote. Henk, what should I do with this ridiculous report of yours? Well, you should read it because it's very important, and you'll find all the answers. No, I won't find the answers. I'm not going to read this report. This is not what I'm doing right now. I'm doing completely different things. And you didn't ask me. Why didn't you ask me? So that makes people think. And you have to be patient.
Interesting.
You have to be patient, really.
Yeah,
It's
that
the
makes sense,
researchers.
honestly. That makes sense. I think I'll try that. Let's see how that goes, honestly. And
Yes.
at least we have that rapport in terms of talking to some of these policymakers. So that's great submission, Henk. Thank you so much.
Tell me the answer later.
Definitely, I'll come back. I'll come back to your email.
Good.
Okay, guys, I see that our time is up, so I will round up now. But I want to tell you that we have already planned the next webinar that will be in November. I don't remember the exact date, but we will announce it just in a couple of days. And the next speaker is actually in the audience. It's Oliver Karsten, professor at University of Leeds in the Great Britain. And those of you who know Oliver know how exciting it is to listen to him. So please stay put. And I really hope to see you again in a few weeks. And Henk, thank you very much for your talk. For me, it's probably the third or fourth time I'm listening to you, and I am equally impressed and I'm equally excited to see it because I see the new nuances again and again and again. So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, your experience. Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So thank you very much, the audience, for your attention, for your patience, for your questions, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.